Roman, in the last video, I had explained how these screws were broken off, sometimes below the surface or right at the surface, and that was going to give us a lot of trouble. And that I had a tool ordered, and from being sent from my shop, being sent overnight, but overnight in Belize. It was overnight to Miami, but not, we still haven't heard anything about it and have nothing to track. So so the product's called Unscrew 'em, and it looks very similar to this. And you put it in a drill, and you start drilling, and you core around the screw, and out comes the screw. Now the Unscrew 'ems are they're sharpened, and they've got teeth, and they're like a miniature hole saw. They got like saw teeth on them going around this edge. But while I was in the bar last night, which was, by the way, my second trip to the bar since I've been here. Anyway, I saw these stainless steel straws, and I said, geez, that's just what we need. And they actually worked fairly well without sharpening them. You can see you can only use them so many times and they become damaged. But there's an example of the screw that was left in the frame. And of course, if we left those screws in the frame, when we're trying to put the bottom on, the screws would be we'd be hitting the screws with our screws, with our new screws, and breaking our new screws and creating all kinds of frustration, and possibly leading to split frames and so forth. So this is imperative that these came out, and we did that today. We figured out a way around that problem. So far, we owe the bar for 5 of these, or maybe 6 of these stainless steel straws. Anyway, we're real good at solving problems. We've got this half of the boat. You can see we've gotten the screws that are broken off out of, no, it looks like I got one there. But we've gotten the screws that are broken off out of this half of the boat. And we've got part way on the other half of the boat. Yesterday, and I can't remember exactly when I did the video yesterday, but yesterday was Saturday, today's Sunday, and we installed this yesterday. This was the stem was rotted, and so we cut the rod off and created this piece right here, and hand carved the groove in it for the planks to land in. And then we yesterday also installed some more fix on the frame that broke when the lifting ring assembly broke out. So we've improved on Dred's repair. He didn't, of course, have access that we have, the access that we have now. So he did a really good job of what he did. It's just now that we have the access, we decided we needed to improve upon that. We have replaced, and Dred did most of the work on the frames. I helped him clean up and understand the quality requirements that we needed. But this is a new frame, new gusset, new sister frame, and that's really where these frames are in halves, and then the sister frame bridges the 2 halves together. So here we have a new frame, new gusset, new sister frame here. And we're probably going to have to change this frame as well, so we still have that to do. Then we have these made, the sister frame made for this row, and a new frame and gusset for the other side, and then this new frame for this side, and the new transom bow. We actually got yesterday morning, a white oak came in, and the transom bow was made of white oak. Was made of white oak, and so it's a heavy structural member, so we got that. Also, this transom post it was rotted on the end, and so we made a repair to that you can see where it ties into the where the scarf joint ties into the transom post, the original below it. And so we've got new there you can see the joint, and see the joint on that side. Okay, so also this transom post was rotted on the end, so we have a new piece here on this transom post. This transom post goes all the way down here, so I had to change one of those on my cruiser this year. I wasn't able to do just a repair like that. Also, yesterday, we finished it off today, but yesterday we did the chine. It was damaged on the end, so we do what's called a scarf joint. And if you think about a scarf laid out on a table, this is the joint. And Jed did the joint. I showed him what to do, and he did it. He did a real nice job. And he's pulled, like I say, he's pulled most of the screws out of the chine and the frames on this side. There's a few. We'll have to do a little quality control here. There's a few left to do, but and as you can see, this wood looks pretty gnarly and broken up, and as you can see, when you plane it down, you know, and we'll be able to plane it down a little bit. When we plane it down, you end up with some fairly new looking wood. So so no issues there. And I wanted to give you a little more detail on the bolts. I talked about the bolts. The bolts have been breaking as we take them out, and or breaking as we put them back in, and or thread stripping on them as we put them back in. Where we've tried to reuse some. Tried to reuse some just so we can continue to put the boat back together. But I would suggest that, you know, here's one that was broken off in place. Had been broken for a while. Here's we got a threader, and we've been rethreading bolts. But then I had some real aggravation today in that the nuts, I start to put the nuts on, and these two nuts are broken. And then I found that this one is cracked, and of course when that happened, it stripped the threads off my bolt. So what should have been a 5-minute job ended up being a 30-minute job. So this is I have bolts on order, so enough bolts to actually change every bolt in the boat. The bolts are located, these guys get bolted. There will be a bolt here to the engine stringer. Every frame would be just like that. Bolted to the engine stringer. You see the hole right there. Just get closer to the hole. And so there's the end of the bolt. So we won't have an opportunity to do the bolts unless the bottom's off. This is our only opportunity to do it. There's bolts that run from here down to here, and this end of the bolt's here. Oh, that end of the bolt is there. Let's see if we can find it here in the picture. Right there is the other end of the bolt, and so we're finding those broken, and or when you go to take them out, they break if they're not already broken. And then as I mentioned today, I needed to get this transom bow in because so much relied on it, and I've put the bolts in, but I intend to be able to pull the bolts out and put new ones in. But that was a tremendously long process, and it didn't really need to be, with the exception of the fact that the reason it was so long was because we were doing everything we could to use the bolts and use what we had. Also, the keel bolts down to each of the frames. There'll be a bolt from the top of the keel down through the frame at each frame station, and all of those are out right now, and we don't have the right size bolts for that. So anyway, so that's where we're at, and I wanted to give you more detail on the bolts so you can understand what the holdup is there. Oh, I'm looking at one other holdup, or one other thing that I've got ordered. Are the exhaust pipe. You notice there's a hole in the copper on this exhaust pipe. I took out another one earlier off the other hose, and same story. And I don't know why the holes in the exhaust pipe, and that looks like a drilled hole. But interestingly, you can see where the hose came to right there. So the hose didn't cover the whole hole. So as you ran your engine, guess what? We were pumping water out of a small, say, 1/4 inch or 3/8 hole, pumping water into your boat and here you are trying to keep your boat dry. So I suggest that we go ahead and get those tubes coming our way as well. And I've already told James about them. I don't know if he's got them ordered or not, but anyway, I've requested them of James. But anyway, that's the oh, one other thing we found that we're going to address now that we have a thrutter is your throttle linkage. The throttle linkage comes down through the steering column, and there is one of these ball joint, flexible joint on the end of the steering column, and then there's a rod that comes over to what this is called a bell crank. I don't know why it's called a bell crank. It doesn't ring my chimes, but anyway, this had fallen apart, so it was being held on with a zip tie. So we got a new unit to put on it, and of course all this stuff is easy when it's upside down, and it's really easy for us to work on it, and when it's upside down and open on the bottom. Okay, that's the update for tonight, and apologize for we've had our nose to the grindstone, and I've been a little discouraged that we haven't been able to get farther, but as you can see, it's not ideal working conditions, and actually we've been doing really well considering that. The distance to our machinery to the boat is minimized, but it's still a pretty good distance. So and these cobblestones are really tough to walk on. Twisted my ankle on one today. So anyhow, that's where we're at, and talk to you soon.